I'm here with Daniel, the founder of Simple.Ink, who recently got acquired for six figures. Daniel, how you doing today?
Very well myself. How are you, Andrew?
Doing good. So, for those that may not be familiar with you, do you want to give just a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Daniel, and along with my brother David, we are just trying our best every day on the internet, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. I started Simple.Ink we launched in January 2022, and Simple.Ink is a Notion website builder. So if anybody hasn't heard about Notion, well, people call it a to-do app, but it's not that much of a to-do app anymore. It's a productivity tool, let's call it. That is what's relevant for this intro is the Notion is very aesthetic. It's very hard to make it look ugly. And it turns out people want to build websites out of that. So we build Simple.Ink. But yeah, besides that, I run online business with my brother. I'm 25, he's 19. We've been doing this for a couple of years. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. I love how you're getting started at an early age, building and getting acquired. That's the way to do it. What
Yeah.
made you, what motivated you to start Simple.Ink?
We were users of Notion, and we saw that it's exactly what I said earlier. We saw that it's pretty hard to uh, mess up the aesthetic of Notion. I mean, you'd really have to try really hard. And then we noticed the product as well. So we noticed that we are able to build a website out of that. We had the need ourselves. And initially it started with just adding a custom domain to it, because especially back then you couldn't really, what people would do is they would have a workaround. They would buy a domain and set the redirect. So they would buy andrewgazdecki.com and they would redirect you to the Notion page. And that gave us it was one of the few pings, like pings on a radar that people might be paying for something like this, or at least that they have a need. And of course, if you paid for a domain, that means you've already paid for something. So yeah, this along with our willingness to place a bet on the Notion industry, not just on the community, because at this point, I guess it's an industry. And yeah, the natural itch or urge to start something and to build something for yourself, but also for people. That's really what led to building Simple, I think, really.
Nice. Yeah, I was just looking at the website and congrats on getting product of the day. So it looks like, is it safe to assume when you launched this, was it maybe more of a surprise in terms of the amount of people interested in using this product?
I'll be honest, it was. We knew there was going to be, in all honesty, we knew there were going to be customers, because we weren't really the first ones to be doing it, although we were early as well. But I was still surprised, because this is the first time I was tasting what it feels like to be building on top of a tailwind. So I don't think we would have gotten the growth we've had, or the number of users and the support and the access to all these people if it wasn't for Notion. So this is the first time I was building in a as I said, with a tailwind. And it doesn't have to be, I think, related to a product. Some people have been doing that, on top of WordPress. I mean, I guess WordPress is a product, but some people are doing it now in AI, or have been doing it in crypto. Crypto isn't a product per se, but those are tailwinds as well, or at least have been. And so, yeah, it was surprising. It was a first-time experience, so to speak.
I think it's great. I mean, you addressed a problem that you kind of saw yourself in terms of, and Notion has like tens of millions of users. So, you have tens of millions of built-in users there, and there's a use case that's not being addressed in the Notion product itself. So it makes complete sense to me. How did you get your first customers? How did you get the first paying handful of customers of yours?
I realize now, I'll just get back to the question a second. Speaking of tailwinds, I think you with business apps as well, you were on the tailwind of mobile apps, isn't it? Because you were really early when mobile apps were coming out.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things I always say in terms of, the best businesses to start, I was saying, make a bet that's obvious to you, that's not obvious to others, that will become obvious over time. So I've done that with kind of all, including a dumb crypto business I started. But yeah, with business apps, I knew mobile apps were going to be like a thing. And this is right when the iPhone came out. So people were still trying to figure it out, and information moved slower then. Like AI feels like, whoa, okay, now everyone's already educated. There's companies coming out just aside from ChatGPT. But also, Acquire.com too, which was, the bet that more people would be building let's call it sub $10 million businesses, self-funded, and would need a place to sell because the barriers to entry of building a startup have been lowered. So that was kind of a little background tidbit of, originally microacquire. That was the thought process behind the bet I
Okay.
was making in terms of, and then on the other side is entrepreneurship through acquisition, where they would buy something like Simple.Ink, try to take it farther, maybe roll it up in a portfolio of apps. But yeah, there's actually a really good TED talk on market timing, tailwinds. I probably would put that in the same bucket, but you should check it out. It kind of goes over market timing being actually the number one factor of success with startups.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. It's called, I think it's this one, The Single Biggest Reason Why Startups Succeed by Bill Gross.
Yep.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and just for context for people listening, like it has a really good, check it out. It has a great example of YouTube is probably my favorite example. There was a ton of different companies that tried to make YouTube work, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until Adobe Flash came out. And
Yeah.
what Adobe Flash did was it made it so you can upload a video at a small enough size where you can, watch it on computers that are on dial up and stuff like that. Cause YouTube started like way back in the day.
Yeah.
But before that, like uploading, a 100 megabyte video was just insane, and
Crazy.
so no website could handle that. Same with Uber. Like Uber was only successful because of the mobile phone. There's a few other examples like that. So I think that the takeaway I always get from that is sometimes being the first mover in a market can actually be a disadvantage because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much you can learn from people that go into a market first, and you can look at what's working for them, what's not. But we'll get so off track if we go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Tell me, yeah, go ahead.
You were asking about the first user.
Yeah, how'd you get your first customers?
It was through Twitter, now called X, obviously, because we've been we are old enough to call it Twitter. I think the next generation are gonna be just accustomed to X, so I have to make this video future proof. It was through Twitter or X, but honestly, I feel I've seen so many founders get discouraged by this thing of, oh, I don't have an audience. I didn't have one back then either, so I need to make this note, this small disclaimer that it could have not been through Twitter, or even if you don't have an audience, if you just get into the community, I think that's so it could have easily been through Reddit, and signing up for Reddit just takes a minute and you're in the community. But yeah, it was actually we were selling at pre-order, so I think we had a pre-order for something like $6 a month, and when we launched it was $12 a month. So we had like you would pay for a year upfront and get 50% off, and that's how we got our first users. But yeah, and to give a bit more context, because I hear this as well, I got it through Twitter, and I was like, okay, then I'm like, I need to go through their history, go back to 2017, see what they were tweeting. But for us, I just made a simple preview of the app. It wasn't even actually the app. It was a bit of a kind of like the iPhone demos back in the day. It was a bit like a movie of the no-code app I made to look like Simple.Ink. But I knew that when we were launching, it was going to be exactly like the video I made. So yeah, we posted that. I was saying what would be like if you would take a Notion page, paste the URL, and then in 5 to 30 seconds the website is live, and then boom, the website opens up in a new window. And that's still how Simple.Ink works to this day. So yeah, those were the first customers thanks to that video.
Nice. So I love that. So you essentially validated the business before you even had the fully built product out, and you had paying customers before the product was even live. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know some people choose to do that and then decide whether they're gonna build or not. The product was already in development by that moment, but I think this is just down to every person's risk profile, appetite, and I guess how strong the itch is. Because for me, the itch was strong because I needed it myself. So even if nobody else would use it, I would still be fine. But yeah, that's exactly what happened.
I think it's a great strategy, especially if you're just not sure in terms of like if you're really going to go all in on startup, building a startup, you're going to take on some risk. And so you want to de-risk it as much as possible. And too many, entrepreneurs build products that no one wants at all. Like they don't really have a clear need in the market to really make it worth your time. And one simple way of testing that is you can just set up a landing page and then write down kind of the problem you solve with a simple lead capture form. And if you have a little bit of ad money to spend, you just drive money towards that page and see how it converts, and then just talk to those customers. And if you can pre-sell those customers, then you actually have something. And then 90% of the time too, you'll probably get feedback from the customers on how to make it even better before you ever start building the product. So that approach works. It can definitely save you a lot of money if you just you skip all that and go straight towards building the product, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I've seen people do exactly what you said, and even actually putting it out loud, saying, if I don't get X amount in sales, or X number of pre-orders, I'm not building this. Or maybe they're putting it the other way, I'm building this if I get 100 pre-orders. I've seen somebody do that with a book, actually. And I think it's genius, because it points to exactly what you said, which is you're saving yourself the time, the effort, the energy, or you get the tailwind, I guess. Yeah, but I'm using a different metaphor here. You get the wind in your sails to just do it. You get that motivation. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to jumpstart, a project, and you could do that, with multiple different things too. The reason I like that approach is it allows you to ensure that the time that you're going to be spending building whatever product or solving whatever problem that you're solving, you have validated that there's a market need, and so you can
Yeah.
quickly kind of just test it. And if everyone's like, "No, I won't pay for that at all," but it's really cool, because cool doesn't sell. You want to have something that's like, thank you for solving this problem. That was a
Hmm.
huge headache. You want to sell pain pills, not vitamins, is what I always also say.
Yeah.
But going back to Simple.Ink, so you got number one on Product Hunt, which is awesome to see. You got customers before you even released the product, which is also awesome to see. Was there like a day or like a moment where you were like, oh shit, I found like product market fit? Like there's something, that feeling where you get excited when you get, sometimes it's the first customer, sometimes it's after you're a little bit more cautiously optimistic. But was there like a day that you remember where you're like, this thing has some legs, I think I can make something decent here?
You know what they say, that I'm not going to go into that Buddhist quote, actually. I had a moment like that when we were reaching a certain milestone, which wasn't, I don't know if it was ramen profitability or not, but it was an income that was nice. We knew that no matter what, even if all other sources of income are going down, my brother and I, the co-founders, are fine based on that income. It also has to do with the fact that Simple.Ink, at the end of the day, is website hosting. So much like you would find out on the internet about any website hosting company, people probably stick for longer. People delete their website when they go out of business or when they switch, but sometimes it's hard to switch because you need to move everything and all that. So we had that moment, yeah, when we reached an amount which was a nice salary or a nice source of income for two people, or even for one person, obviously. But I think that came because after a couple of months after launching, I was feeling a bit down because I thought the income would be higher. The number of users was there because we had a freemium plan, and Simple.Ink to this day has a freemium plan. But I was like, I thought more people would convert out of this number. So maybe it was action and reaction, or maybe it was just a milestone. But yeah, that was product market fit. I knew we kind of had it, or at least there was a potential for product market fit when we had the pre-order up, because we would launch and the website would be buggy, or they would crash and be like, okay, the video makes people want this, assuming it works well. It doesn't work well, but there's the potential there, because once you fix ABC, people would be getting what they paid for, and what they saw in the video. But yeah, we did have a moment like that. And as I said, maybe it just came as a reaction to the downward slope I had, or maybe it just happens. But yeah, it's a nice moment. For sure, it's a nice moment. You feel like your hypothesis was right, and that gets trumped by 100 different moments where your hypothesis isn't right, and you realize, oh snap, I'm not the genius I thought I was. But hey, I'm learning, so at least I'm moving forward. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice when you get to profitability, because you at least know that you can live off what you built. That is a special moment, because the longer you can just stay alive, the more things you can improve upon, the more you can focus on the business. Like, you have a real business once you can start living off of it, in my opinion.
That's
So
exactly it. Exactly what you said. The fact that you can stay alive. I mean, I wasn't able to express this, but when you said it now, it just clicked. I knew at that moment, it felt like we couldn't die anytime soon, unless black swan event happens. But we knew we could stay alive for long term, and that's kind of 99% of what you need in most cases.
oh yeah, that's also maybe a great point to bring up. I actually was talking to a friend the other day, and he was kind of talking about, how do I get past like 10 million or something like that? And then I kind of just slowed him down. I was like, just focus on like your first million or whatever it takes for you not to die. Like, just get there and then think about, okay, how do I get to a million? Then get to a million, then get to, it's like, that I think people overestimate in terms of how hard, like on average, it takes a SaaS company 2.5 years, 2 years and 8 months to get to a million in recurring revenue, and only 4% of startups get there. So I
Yeah,
think so many people
crazy.
leapfrog in their head in terms of, where this will go. When if you just think like, hey, if I just get to ramen profitability, I'm not, like you said, like, if there's a black swan event or something like that. Aside from that, now you have a huge competitive advantage, which is time to just focus on the business, improve it, even, that,
Compound.
yeah, that chart of, improve 1% every single week. And
Yeah.
it's true. It's such a cheesy quote, but yeah, just,
Yeah.
being consistent and compounding, but being able to get to a place where you can afford to do that, I think is, yeah, that's kind of I remember I got to that moment, in all my businesses. And, for anyone who gets there, like I recommend enjoying it, because right
Yeah.
after that, a bunch of other, bad shit happens typically.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we have to celebrate, I don't know, with a tattoo or at least like a party. You don't feel like doing it in the moment, but I feel like as you, because I obviously you're way more seasoned than I am. And I've had it twice or maybe three times. But I know that after you keep on seeing it and you get that wisdom, you're like, well, we need to enjoy it now because it happens. So yeah, next time it happens, I'll be drinking to that because I don't have any tattoos.
Nice. Yeah. I don't have any tattoos either, but when we have something that goes right at, acquire.com, I do tell the team, I'm like, hey, everybody, like celebrate this. We had a great month or a great week or a great product release. Celebrate this because next week something bad's going to happen. It's just how
Yeah.
it goes. I think I've been building startups since, I was since I was 20. So I've been through so many ups and downs and just have learned. And then when I look back, I always just think, when it was really good, I wish I just took a step back and just gave myself a pat on the back.
Yeah.
So when you go through kind of like, I don't know, customers churn or cancel or someone leaves you a bad review, whatever it may be, that is inevitable. So you just kind of realize, hey, let's enjoy this part, because also I know this part's coming too. And
Yeah.
then the harder parts come, you're more even keeled. You're not like,
Yeah.
fluctuating with emotions all the time.
Same
Anyway,
same thing I was saying that the thing I mentioned, I had the down thing, the down moment, and then I had the up moment when we reached that moment. So exactly, I guess we're having the same point. Yeah, that it's all evened out at a certain level in a certain way.
yeah, the importance is to really be even keeled though. Like you don't want to get, too optimistic or too down. You want to just be like, one fun fact is I write in just a simple journal every month.
Yeah, you told me.
And
I remember.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you want me to tell you again?
Uh, you told me you've been doing this for years. Like I think since the early days of business app, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so
And
that's how I wrote the whole book on business
that's what I was gonna
apps.
say. And you want to give that to your son one day, if I remember correctly.
Well, the book's already written, so
I know the book, but the journal, I know, and the book has been written for him.
So,
But
the journal's online. I use something called Penzu, and it reminds. So I'll just get like an email, and I actually got one like today, and it's like, here's what you wrote 4 years ago or something like that. So it's a fun
oh, that's
way to
cool.
like keep these memories. But
Yeah,
one thing I always do is I just write things that are going great in business, things that are not going great, a few things I'm grateful for, and then a prediction where I'll be in 30 days from now. Then I
hmm
just update it every month. And then one thing I've noticed is every problem I ever write, I check it again. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I forgot about that. That's fixed. I got this other problem. So again, it's a kind of a good way to have perspective of, you'll get through whatever problem, but in the moment it can feel so much more intense.
yeah. And you get back to how you felt, through this app and yeah, that's nice. That's so yeah, as you said, puts it down into perspective. Yeah, I'll be
It's half,
doing that too. I should be
it's,
doing that too. I don't know if
it's,
I will, but I should be.
it's half the battle, man. Mental. Startups
Yeah.
are a mentality game, in my opinion. All right, let's get to the acquisition part. What made you want to sell Simple.Ink? Things are going good. You got customers. What led to that decision?
Yeah, we made the listing. So I was on this podcast before because I acquired the company at one point. Obviously, I knew about acquire.com ever since. By the way, I still rock my micro acquire cap.
I do too. I do too, man.
Okay, yeah, that's nice. So also the t-shirt. I just listed Simple Ink to see. I think most people that sell their company, or at least a significant percent of people that sell their company do that. You list it to see what the feeling is like. Well, sorry, how the market feels it, and then you get an offer and you think about it and you wisen up. And because I guess, and I've noticed that as well because we have been going through a process and we almost signed the deal, and then we didn't go through with that deal due to a number of reasons. And then we're like, okay, fine. So what I was going to say is, and I think you've pointed this out before, the best way to sell your company is to not have to sell your company. So if you keep on going without selling it, you're perfectly fine. So we've been experiencing that. Yeah, I was listing it. We got a couple of offers, and yeah, exactly what I said earlier. You think about it. I suppose it comes down to the person and to the risk profile. I tend to be a bit more, analytical, calculated, if that's a word. I'm sure the new acquirer will be getting back their ROI. And before we sold, I told my brother, I said, look, I want to make a mental note now, which is what I would do in the journaling app as soon as I started. I want to make a mental note now that I know I'll be seeing the MRR in a couple of years, and I'll be saying, I might be thinking, or a certain part of you might be thinking, look at all that growth we haven't harvested, but it feels like the right thing because you're trading in risk. So exactly to your point earlier, we're in the business of managing risk. I kind of cashed in my chip, and it just felt like a nice foundation step. And yeah, that's how it went, really.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why I sold, was just cash in the chips. Cause as an entrepreneur, you have your whole like net worth, and that may not be very much into one, business. And so, if you get an offer that's just too good to turn down, you should take
Yeah.
it. And then any offer that you get, you should also view it as the only offer you'll ever get, because it may be. But like, I really like your point in terms of, you can list on acquire.com, and a lot of the buyers that you meet, you can keep growing your business and then command a higher multiple by building those relationships in advance. Because again, what you're doing is you're de-risk. We're in the business of de-risking. I like that saying.
Yeah.
And you de-risk the acquisition opportunity with the buyers by just letting them get to know you, watch the progress of especially if it's growing. Because if it's growing, you can send them, short monthly updates. Here's how it's going. You're not budging on your price. But then what you're doing is you start growing into, that price. So I've seen that strategy work out well. But moving back to your acquisition, tell me about like, and Card.com, like, what you were doing in terms of, preparation and all that fun stuff. But what was it like being on the sell side? So like first 2 weeks you go live, what happened? Like, were you surprised? Were you
It,
not?
it,
Tell me about it.
it's weird because you get showered with this attention from people who are kind of obviously have an interest in you. So I feel like I got to find out how it's like to be a hot girl, because you get all this inbound and you're like, whoa, I'm a bit overwhelmed. Not to say that all these people were throwing money at us, but they had the interest in the company, they had questions. So again, not to say that we got 15 LOIs or whatever, but it needed a bit of management. And I felt like it did help that I have been through in their shoes before. So as I said, I acquired a company. Maybe you don't have to acquire one, but browsing through the listings, paying for that acquire.com subscription. Maybe you don't need the highest plan if you don't look at what is it, 250K ARR and above for the highest plan I think you have.
Yeah, we have it split.
Maybe you need that, maybe you don't need that, but browsing for the listings and seeing, because after you get a bit of exposure to them, you can kind of sense, okay, this is a seller that looks a bit not desperate, but they look like they're looking to sell fast. This is a seller who might not even be convinced they want to sell their company, because you sometimes I guess you can sense that in the listing, and I'm sure you know this better than I do because you see most of the listings, if not all of them. So going through that process, I kind of knew what I wanted to see if I was a buyer. And yeah, you were asking how the process was. As I said, a lot of attention. We were lucky to be featured in a newsletter as well, which I guess helped. And then there's a lot of gut feeling, or at least for my personality type. What I didn't mention, which was a huge thing, was the acquirer had a great cultural fit with us. There was once we click, there was just total trust. Obviously, part of the due diligence process is looking to verify that trust, but at no point did I feel any hesitation or any doubt. I know they were doing their homework. I know they were checking to see, hey, is what you said true? Because I would do that in their shoes. And I actually even asked them, because we keep in touch. It's been almost a month since, no, more than a month since we signed, a bit over a month since we signed. I asked them, can I ask you, because look, I'll be in your shoes. I'll be looking to acquire again. How did you know I was a good person? Because we discussed what I've heard from Andrew Wilkinson, which was something along the lines of, you can't do a good deal with a bad person. No matter how good the deal is, if you're dealing with a bad person, you just can't do it. So I was asking them, how did you know I was a good person? And they said that it was reflected in the business, the amount of content we've made, and the amount of care that we've put into the company, and the processes and everything. That was a huge thing. And on my side as well, something they've done is they have a Trustpilot page. You hear Trustpilot, you're like, okay, whatever. This e-commerce website has a Trustpilot page. No, they had one with 5 pieces of feedback, 6 now because mine is there too as well. And it was all founders. And I told them, I think 4 times or 5 times. I bombarded them with this at one point. We spent 10 minutes on a call talking about this. I was telling them how important that is, the Trustpilot page, because it just gave me the confidence. You don't get 100% confidence, but you're like, okay, this is great. This is from people who have been exactly in my shoes. Yeah. So that was part of the process as well. And then it's just the back and forth and talking about the business, which any founder is happy to do because it's like your baby, and you're like, hey, look at this great thing I was doing, and this is what happened. So that's how it was for us.
Nice. I love that quote too. That's a Warren Buffett quote. You can't do a good deal with a
Oh,
bad person.
yeah.
But yeah, Andrew Wilkinson is brilliant. So he could
Well,
we'll do have you seen that meme of like Michael Scott from The Office? It's like a Wayne Gretzky quote and Michael Scott.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think
We
Andrew
need
could
to do
probably
that. We need to do that.
yeah,
I've
no,
heard it from him. So it just, I have his voice implanted in my head saying that. So that's why I attributed it to him. But yeah, it's the
it's
internet. So
it's true though. I mean, for a lot of the acquisitions that we see, we actually, tell when we coach founders and also buyers as they go to market, like it's very seldom that we see a deal without some sort of goodwill being involved. What I mean by that is just some, sort of connection between the owner of the business and the buyer of the business, because you have due diligence, you have transferring of the assets, you have post transition stuff. I'm sure there's like questions after close. And so it's not like selling a car where it's like, here's the keys, just
yeah,
go.
and goodbye.
There's passing the baton, and maybe there's some questions about a customer on a weird discount plan that they don't know either, but and so having you available for just little questions like that can go a huge way, again de-risking the acquisition, which makes it, and that's also how you can command higher multiples as well, as just being really easy to work with, but then also in terms of you as the seller of the business, you want to sell to someone you could see yourself getting along with for, at least a few months, because you will be working with them.
Yeah, that's a great point you make there. And I didn't know that. I was lucky to find somebody like that. And I would even go as far as saying that I would at any moment choose somebody with, a lower multiple, or maybe a lower valuation, but somebody that I know is a good person, as opposed to the other way around, because maybe it even goes through with a bad person, but even after the acquisition takes place, it could, after the signing takes place, it could go bad in a couple of ways. But as you said, if there's goodwill there, and I didn't know that myself, but what you said is exactly spot on. There needs to be a need of at least a tiny bit of goodwill in there. Otherwise, it's not happening. But
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I 100%. That's also advice that when we have startups that we're specifically working with under our guided advisory program, we'll like here's a real example. So there was one company that I was personally helping sell, and it was a multi-million-dollar transaction, so it's going to be potentially life-changing for the founder. And he had multiple LOIs. We got him up to 4, and we narrowed it down to 2. And the two weren't necessarily the highest. What I was trying to help the owner of the business understand is you want to focus on the highest likelihood of close, because some people just shoot out letter of intents, and then you're just not getting along with the person, or just
Yeah.
little things like, can we see a deal schedule or due diligence schedule in terms of the items, so we're all aligned before we sign this LOI and go into formal due diligence. And we ended up going with a wonderful, the business was owned by husband and wife, and we sold to another husband and wife couple. And you could just tell that these were good people, that they got along, and this was going to be a longer due diligence process. So it meant, and then also just the legacy of the business. The owner wanted someone who would, take care of it and understood the specific domain that they were in, which was Let's just call it, lead generation. And yeah, so again, you want to go with someone where, you may have someone at a higher price, but if they're unresponsive and they're not getting back to you and they're not necessarily being very transparent on what's going to happen post LOI, I would recommend going with someone even at a discount, because you know that the probability of that acquisition closing is higher, instead of kind of signing and going into like a mystery tunnel with this person where once you sign there, because the worst thing that can happen, it's not necessarily the worst, but you sign an LOI, you get a month in, the person's like, I don't want to do this anymore, and then you're back to square one with
Yeah.
your acquisition process. So good job on picking, again, a buyer with just goodwill, even if it's not at the highest price.
I got
But
lucky. I'll be honest. It just happened. So I just happened to learn that by being exposed to it. But yeah, what you said is exactly spot on for anyone, not anyone being in this position, and anyone looking to be as wise as they can in that situation.
Yeah, and I'll take it a bit further too. Like when I sold business apps, we had different offers, and I took one from a private equity firm that just had stellar,
Reputation.
reputation, references from founders, owners of businesses. Because like I would call them and I'd say, what was it like working with them?
Mm-hmm.
Did they actually close? Did they reprice the acquisition? Like anything happened?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very typical for private equity to take you to the very end and then, oh, we found something, and then lower the price. And this,
Like, sorry to interrupt. Like in that book, Build to Sell, isn't it? Because I think we talked about. Was I talking to you about that book, Build to Sell?
yeah, I've read that book.
Yeah, and I remember at one point the lesson from the mentor is that you need to put down a number, put it in a drawer, and forget about it. And if this happens at the last second, private equity just changes the valuation, and you get salty. You look at that number, and if it matches, you're like, well, this is what I signed up for. I think in the book was, let's just say price was at 4 million, but at the last second, private equity changes to 3.5. But the number in on the guy's piece of paper was 3 million. So if it was above 3 million, it was actually better than. But losing 500,000 in the last stages is can be daunting. So I'm
Yeah,
paraphrasing here, but I think that's what happened in the book.
yeah, and there's times when I have seen price adjustments by different buyers for very valid reasons. You go a little bit deeper into the financials, and then you see that profitability isn't exactly the number that they were valuing the business off of, or revenue is declining for some reason, or they just lost, a large customer. There's so many different scenarios where it's valid, but then there's also, situations where firms kind of have a common practice. And anyone who does that on acquire.com, we unfortunately ban buyers that do that.
Oh,
So
really?
it depends. If it's on what we would deem as, egregious, where there's no, if it's repriced based on information you had at day one, and
Mm-hmm.
and we feel that that was your strategy, then
Mm-hmm.
yes. And we've only
Yeah.
had like two situations like that. So it's rare, but it's, in my opinion, it's a great way to ruin your reputation as a firm. Another great quote from Warren Buffett is, it takes years to build a brand and days to destroy a brand.
Hmm.
And, I think firms that act with that behavior, word just gets around that, they, kind of, again, use information from day one to reprice at, a week from close. So, maybe
Yeah.
for buyers listening out there, don't do that, because, word does get around and people won't want to work with you.
Yeah. Not to disrespect big old Warren's quote, but I think in the world of Twitter, it actually takes even hours to destroy a reputation. I guess back in the day it was newspapers and that, not, maybe it took days, but I feel like now it could take even hours for something like this to, just come out, and in about 8 hours, it already has happened to the full cycle of Twitter. It's viral, and yeah, that's just it.
Well, oh yeah. That's it'll make you think differently about how you do business. If you think, even just customers that you work with, treat everyone right, because there's another saying that one happy customer tells like 3 people, but an unhappy customer tells 20 people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you want to be thinking about that as well as you're building your business. But
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, Daniel. We're going
Likewise.
back and forth. Just to kind of round things out. So you've been on the buy side, you've been on the sell side, you've been successful with both. If you just had, 3 pieces of advice to give founders looking to sell their business, what would it be?
Don't listen to any advice. That's number one. Because But I mean, listen, but don't follow blindly, I guess, because if you intersect it all, you just end up nowhere. So I guess if you just read all the piece of advice and you try to do put them all head to head, you're just gonna end up nowhere. So after a certain point, it's your gut feeling or your decision. But the good thing is that that's yours and you can train it. And I mean, it's even better to train it. So that would be number one. Number two, most probably what I just said, the fact that if you don't have to sell, that's the best not necessarily the best moment, but maybe the best position to be in when selling. So as I said, we had a deal, it fell through, and we were like, well, great, well, it's fine. I mean, it is a bit disappointing because we spent the time, but as I said, we were just looking to test out the waters, and the fact that we had the offers and the conversations, I'll be honest, it was a bit of a, not an ego boost, but a bit of a confidence boost in, as you said, entrepreneurship is a game of, is a mental game. So, we were sitting a bit more upright thinking, you know what, if we got some offers once, we probably could get it again, at a later point or right now. And then the final offer, the offer that we went through, came and everything was fine. But yeah, I have to actually mention that it was two different rounds when we did this acquisition talks. But anyways, I'm digressing here. And let's see, number three, I guess it's cheesy, basic advice, but if pieces of advice are basic, is because at a certain point they are true. Just be the seller you want to deal with. It's hard to imagine that, but I'll backtrack to what I was saying earlier. I think just browsing the listings for a bit, maybe a bit more, would go a long way. As you can easily, I mean, if somebody is selling their business, they're a business person, or at least, they've been doing this, you can put yourself in the shoes of the buyer by looking at other listings, and you can see, and you can also understand the seller. And if somebody is very, sometimes some things don't look right on an acquisition, and sometimes they just are very upfront and honest. And, by even talking to them, that they're fine with telling you about the details. There's no, there's nothing secret, no NSA level of protectiveness, and you get a feeling of people. Maybe you don't have to talk to them because you might not actually be buying, but or you could be talking to fellow founders. But yeah, what I was starting with as piece of advice number three, based on my experience, is, yeah, be the seller you want to be dealing with. And especially since, as you said, you are starting a relationship with the buyer, and who knows, maybe 5, even 15 years down the line, something else happens because of you going the extra mile and being the seller you want to be dealing with. So yeah, those would be my three for the moment. Hoping that on the next acquire.com podcast, when I'll be exiting my second company, I'll be having 3 different ones. But
There we go.
that's for the next season.
Yeah, I love your last point in terms of whenever someone emails me and says like, how do I get into acquisitions, or I'd love to learn more about acquisitions, I'm looking to sell my company in like a year or something like that, I always kind of just say, go buy something for 5K and go through, like, treat it like it's a multi-million-dollar deal. Like, go through the letter of intent, go through the asset purchase agreement, go through escrow, go through the transfer, just so you have just a general, because founders aren't taught how to sell businesses. There's, I think, 3 books on the topic. So just going through that motion of, okay, so this business had a data room, but really that made this process a lot easier at this point. You get that, kind of goes down to another sort of cheesy but common quote of experience is the best teacher. And so when you can go through an acquisition, even on the buy side, just buying just a small product, but treating it seriously, that will give you so much experience. And for you, when you go to sell your business, in my opinion.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right on. Well, Daniel, thanks for coming on the podcast. Before I let you go, I gotta ask, what are you building next?
When is this going to be live? How many days or weeks from now?
Probably like 2-3 weeks.
Okay, I'll be starting guides.ai. So for anyone listening, just go there. What it will be really simple. Just the best and simplest way to learn about anything AI related. Obviously, with time, it depends on whether you're listening to this on day one or a couple of years after the episode's been released. But I think guides.ai is going to be my next moonshot, so to speak.
Nice.
And also an agency for SaaS companies, an agency with services for SaaS companies. But is it okay if I direct people to my Twitter account? X?
Yeah, no, we'll put that all in the show notes and stuff like that.
Cool.
But
Cool.
If people want to learn more about those 2 projects, where should they find you? Twitter, LinkedIn? What's your preferred Twitter?
Twitter for sure. X.com/CHD.
X. It's X now.
I need to correct myself every time. So yeah,
It's gonna take a while to undo that rebrand mentally.
same here. Yeah,
Well, Daniel, thanks so much for coming on. Congrats on all the success, man. And yes, let's get you back on here when you get that third startup acquired.
I'll be looking forward. Andrew was great. Highly appreciate the energy and how you made this chat really flow. You can see it's not our first time, but yeah, thanks for having me. It's been an honor.
Yeah, looking forward to our fifth podcast, whatever it is coming up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Bye.